So we can use it, we can create a program using the following ways. Simple, we can just define a class. In the main function, we can write the message using system.console.write-ln or write line. Then using system, we do not have to put it here. We just will define it once, and then we have to delete this thing here. We don't need it. That's console.write-line. And then third is we can use the public modifier. Here we are defining system, keyword, and at last we are using everything, but mostly the main important factor that we are using is namespace. And then we use console.write-line, we add system over there, even we can add public here. So these are the 4 different ways for which we can write the C# programs. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
So, but we always make use of, namespaces. So 4th one will be mostly used as always, because we mention everything in it. We mention namespaces, we mention the keyword system, so that we do not have to write again and again system.console.write-ln, and even we can mention public modifier. So that means namespace is going to use every particular type of C# program, whether simple or public modifier or using the system. So we are done with the first example of our project test 2, where we have displayed welcome to the College of AppTech, and this is the year 2. Please do register, save it. All right, so next topic is, are you here with me, all of you? Have you tried it? Are your projects working? Have you installed the Visual Studio accurately?
Download the program now.
You have to install it. You have to check all the things. You need to have a very good internet speed, Miss Lubna.
Yeah.
Try to download it, and whatever the things I am going to teach today, I will copy and paste them in the group, and please go through them by today. But I want you to install it, and from next time onwards, I don't want anybody to come on phone. Okay, I'm gonna remove him from the class. To be very honest, to be very strict. If anybody came on the phone, I will remove him from the class. You have to have your laptops with you. I don't want to create any problems for you, and you do not have to create problems for me. Just it's because you will be having a project based on C# in this year. So make sure that you practice for it, at least learn the basic things, at least learn even just the basic introduction, how to create code, what are the basic things, at least learn variables, data types, and loops, so that we can use them in our project, which will be starting later on in this particular year. Okay? So everybody should install this Visual Studio community version. It's a free one. You have to install that in your systems. But today's work, I want everybody to do even when I will complete this class. Okay?
Mr. Johar,
Yeah.
the quiz or the exam in the next week, in which program?
It's Android development. The first book, Android development, you have, if you want, you can install it, Android development. You have missed a lot of classes. I'm not gonna be responsible for that, and you should not be responsible for that, but just go through the book. Even I have told you to come and receive the books. Those who wanted to come, they can come and receive their books, hard copies from AppTech main branch, Lulu.
You can go now to the school, sir, to receive the books.
You can come here just with your Athros application, your mobile and mask on your face, okay? And then you can come to main branch, Lulu, because I'm here nowadays. I'm not there in Dohel. So you have to come here to collect your book.
Tomorrow, in which we can come tomorrow, Mr. Johar?
Yeah, you can come tomorrow from 9 to 3 p.m. in between.
Okay.
All right, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. will be my timings tomorrow. So in between, anytime you can come, but before 3. Do not come at 3. It will be difficult. So it's better to come in the morning or in the afternoon after 12, between 12 to 1 or between 12 to 2. Okay? Yep. So let's go ahead with C# variables. You must be familiar with these, all the things, but again, we have to go through these things to freshen up your mind. The variables, the concept of variable is same as what I'm been teaching you since my beginning, like in C programming language, in Java, in SQL, okay? So what is a variable? Yes, any answers?
A unique name that holds a value under a data type.
Yeah, so variable is the name of a memory location. In computer, we store, in a memory of a computer, we store what? Data, we store values, we store data, but it takes a name to store the data on which location you're going to store it. We have to name that location. You understanding? Like there are millions of billions of people in the world. You understand? But how do we identify them? How do we identify them? Each person is having an identity card where he's having his name or her name displayed over there, father's name, country name, you know, like we do have here Qatar ID. So that's the identification, and the name of ours, like my name is Gohar, Carlos is there. So that's our identity. We are placed, our location is here in Qatar. That means our memory is here. It's been stored here. We are being stored here in Qatar, but our names. So if I have to locate anybody, or if you want to locate anybody over the world or in Qatar, so first of all, you need to know the address, or you need to know the name of a person, you know, first name of a person and then second address of that person. Then only you will be able to identify, or you will be able to locate him in this country, Qatar, right? So same happens in the computer world. So if you have to store anything in the computer's memory, we have to give a name to that location where you're going to store a value. So that is called as a variable. So a variable is a name of memory location. Which is used to store data. Okay. But is it like it's stored permanently over there? It's not like that. We are not permanently stored here. We move from country to country. We move to India, we move to another particular country, we move to India, Pakistan, we move to Philippines, we move to different spaces. So you can say it's not, it is, its value can be changed. It's not necessary you defined a variable. You can change its value. You can keep on change its value, okay? Its value can be changed and it can be reused many times. So a variable cannot be changed. The value which you are storing in a variable can be changed, and we can use that variable many times in our program. All right. So it's a way to represent memory location. Memory location through symbol, so that it can be very easily identified. So represent symbol. So a variable is the name of a memory location which is used to store the data. Its value can be changed and it can be reused many times or several times. and it's the way to represent memory location through a symbol so that it can be very easily identified. Okay, so the variable type in C# can be categorized as in several ways. So variable type and you can see, for example, you have decimal types. The numbers are in decimal, so you can say example can be a decimal. Variable type can be decimal, so example can be a decimal number. We can have a variable with Boolean type, like in Boolean we can have true or false values. Then we have integers, so that means integral types. Example can be the variables like data types, like we can say integer char, we can say byte in integer, we can have short in integer, we can have long in integers. Okay, and then we can have floating point types, and example can be float, sorry, not float, is float, and double. And then there will be nullable types where there are no values, so nullable types, not tupes, it's types. So nullable, like white. Data types. Now, how to define a variable? So in order to define a variable, we have to define it in this format. Type, what is the type of variable, and what is the variable name? Variable, V-I-R-A, R-I-A, variable name. This is the syntax, or this is the way how do we define the variable. So what type of variable is it, whether it's an integer, it's a decimal, or it's a Boolean or floating or nullable? Suppose that it is integer, so we'll use int as a data type. It's a data type, okay, type of data, and then we'll use the variable, for example, age. That's the variable name. So that's how do we define a variable with a data type. So you know that I have a value called 15 and it's an integer value, and now you know that it's an integer, so we have integer here. So what's the data type? It's a type integer. What is it? Integral types. And then we can store a value in it. That's a later case, but right now I'm just giving you the ways how we can define the variable. We can even use double and say double weight. All right, we can use float. Type is float, and if it's float, then it can be, for example, marks. Okay, and then we can use char if it's a character. Suppose that char, car, and we can say gender. All right, so variable name. So this is a data type, this is a variable, this is a data type, this is a variable, this is a data type, this is a variable, this is a data type, and this is a variable. Okay, got it?
Yeah.
Now, if you want to declare the values in these variables, so declaring values. So we can simply define integer age equals to, for example, if it's 23, semicolon, that's how we can, and then if it's double, variable double, and weight VIGST, WEIGST. So we can say 89.78700, whatever it is. Okay, semicolon, and then if we have, these are the ways, there are different ways. So for example, car, we have a variable called gender, and equals to, we have to put it equal to in single quotes. We need to say whether male, M. We can just define a single variable here, okay? And for example, you have two values of the same type. For example, we have two values, age, comma, and I have the value, comma, what? Marks. Suppose marks are here. They're not decimal, so marks equals to, for example, 89. So we can define it in this way. Instead of defining them one by one, integer age is equal to 23, integer marks is equal to 89. So we can define them integer age is equal to 23, comma, another variable marks is equal to 89. Both are of type integer. There is another way you can define them in this way. Integer, that's data type, and then you can say marks equals to 89. This is another way. But if you don't want to waste your time, you can simply type them within the single data type. Okay, even if there are 3, 4, 5 variables of the same data type, which is integer, you can define them in one single line. There's no need to define them one by one. Clear? Are you clear with these?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Great. So let's move ahead. Rules. Now there are some rules which I have already taught you in my first year, but again, let's refresh your memory because it can also forget. Rules for defining variables. What are the rules through which we can define the variables? So first thing is, a variable can use alphabets while defining. It can use alphabets. Not alphabets can be used. Even you can use digits, and you can even use underscore. Okay, so this is first rule. Second is, a variable name can start with alphabet and underscore only. It can start with. It means you can start writing or start mentioning the variable name with an alphabet or alphabet or an underscore. So what's that? What you can say an example. For example, you have an alphabet A, B up to A to Z. So for example, age, that's a variable definition. But or you can use underscore. You can use a underscore age. That's another way. So these are the two ways through which we can start writing our variable names. So it can contain alphabets, it can contain digits, but you cannot define a variable by starting with a digit. It can start with an alphabet or it can start with an underscore. It should not be a digit. It cannot start with a digit. It can't start with a digit. So for example, if you wrote it like 5 age, it will not start. That's not a variable. That's not a variable. Okay, in between you can use age. After age you can write 5. If it's going to be like this, age 5, it is, because it started with an alphabet, not with a digit. All right, so but this is not a valid variable. 5 age is not a valid variable. Okay, no white spaces are valid. So white spaces are not allowed. What do you mean by white spaces? There should not be any space in between the variables. For example, I will write age. I should not give a space and write E here. It's not a valid variable. Okay, that's an example. A variable must not, it should not use the reserved keywords. Every particular language is having a reserved keyword set, reserved word or keyword. For example, the data type char, float, int. So we cannot say int a variable, like we cannot say integer is a data type and integer will be variable. It's going to be a problem. Or you cannot say integer for is a loop. Okay, so these are the reserved keywords. We cannot use them to define the variable. So this is the way. These are some rules and regulations of how do we define the variables. Correct? Got it?
Mm-hmm.
So these are then data types. Now C#, I told you data types, what are the different data types, but let's go through the data types. C# data types, as I've told you, why we are using data type? Yes, again, I'm asking you the same question. Why are we using data types? Variables are okay. With variables, we do use data types. Without them, we cannot define a variable. But why do we use data types? It's a question. Why do we use data types? Any answers? Carlos Hadil Lubna, it's a question for you. Please unmute.
Define which operations we can use safely. So we can use the operations safely. That's why. We don't want to be using a float with a string at the same time. So we use it to specify what operations we're going to use it.
Yeah, so data types are used because in the memory, we can store, alphabets, we can store numbers, we can store underscore, we can store strings, any type of data. But if we wanted to categorize, if we want that our particular storage should not collide with each other, should not be any problems while identifying them or while just fetching them from the memory, we use data, we use the type of data simply. In our department, if you consider an example of a company where there will be 100 employees, I am working in IT, others will be working in academics, others working in HR, but there is no particular departments. There are no departments like HR, IT, training, academics. How do we identify each other? That's not a system. So that system will not work. So in every company, we used to divide the company's work into, categories. Like those who are working in HR, they will be having a department HR. They will give the work and they will forward the work to manager. We are training. So we used to have one head. We will forward the work to our manager. There is IT department. They do the work. There are 10 people. They forward the work to manager. So that's how process works. In the same way, in a computer, we store different. We have a lot of data that we can store in computer memory, but there is a type. What type of data you're storing? Are you storing numbers? Then what's the data type? Are you storing strings? What's the data type? Are you storing a single particular alphabet? What's the data type? Are you storing decimal values? You can have the data type. Are you understanding? So C# data types. So we have value data types. Under value data types, we do have predefined data types and user-defined data types. Predefined DT and user-defined. DTs. So under predefined, we have integer. We do have Boolean and we have float. These are predefined. Okay, so under user, we have enumerations, and also we have structure here. These are the data types which we have to learn But in the beginning, we're going to use predefined data types when we define user-defined enumerations as structure, that these are going to come under value data types. All right. Next, we have pointer data type, which also we do have in our C language, pointer data types. There's nothing under it. And also at last, we have references data types. Here also, we have predefined DT, and we have user-defined DT means data types. In predefined, we have objects here, and we have strings. And in user-defined, we have classes and interfaces. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is value data type, under which we have predefined DT and user-defined. In predefined, we have integer, boolean, and this. Enumerations are user-defined. Under reference data types, we have predefined DT, which is objects and strings. And users or user-defined data types are classes and interfaces. So far, as a beginner, we have to work with predefined data types. When you will learn the basics, then we'll move to user-defined, but under value data types, and then we'll move to pointer, and then at last, we'll move to references data types, where we have to learn about objects and strings, and also classes and interfaces. Okay, clear?
Mm-hmm.
So there are three types of data types in C programming language. Value data type, which is short, int, char, float, double, extra. Reference, which is string, class, object, and interface. And pointer is just simply pointers. Okay. My gosh. Now let's go and take an example of it. So it's a time to take an example. Before the break, we'll try to complete one more example where we are going to use variables and data types. So example, so simply steps are, there's no need to create another project. We can use the same, or if you want, you can another project. So for your practice, I'm going to create another project. Create a project with the name test2. Write the code, run the application, and get the result. Okay, so let's go ahead, and it's test3, not test2, because test2 is already created. We have this basic application created already, which I have taught you in my previous session. So now I will go ahead and I will click on File, New. Every time when you create a new project, you have to click on File, New, and Project. Then console app.net core. click on it and next. Here you can name it as test, or it's up to you which name you want, but I want to follow the pattern of my series. So test3, I will create it. Here we go again. It will give you the hello world, but we do not need it. So it's using system, namespace, class, static void main. And whatever the program we have to write it within this main function. So first of all, let's define the variables and get the output of them, okay? So what I'm gonna do, I told you the rules and regulations of defining variables and storing values in them. Type of data, variable name, and the value that you want to store, okay? These are the three things that we need. Am I correct? So I will store integer age, or I will store marks. Integer marks is equal to, for example, 90 semicolon. That's integer whole number, okay? And then I can also make use of double, and I can say my double number equals to, you can say 6.99D semicolon. That's floating point number. Then I can use char, not this, it's char. I can say letter equals to, suppose single quotes, I can say C is the letter, or you can say gender, okay? And then if you have to write a string, here we have a data type called string. If you do want to define string, name is equal to, in the double quotes, we are going to store Carlos Arrow. So these are 4 data types that we have defined, or variables we have defined with different data types, integer, double, cat. Why it's giving an error? It's not giving an error because we have not displayed them. We have not used them. We have just defined them. Now, if you have to use them, always console dot write line, write write line, and in it, if you have to add the text, you can, but I'm directly going to store my variables, define my variables. You can see there will not be any green line under marks now, but still there is green line in the rest of the 3 variables. I will just copy it, being very smart. I don't need to type it, and I'm gonna remove marks, and I'm gonna use my double. Then again, I will paste it here. Instead of marks again, I will use the third one, which is letter. It will automatically come. It's very helpful application, so you do not have to type all time the entire variable name. So name, that's it. And hello world is here. You can remove it, or you can say thank you for access. That's it. So I have defined 4 variables, and I have defined them, or I have displayed them. I want to display them using the console.write line, and with the variable names, and it's gonna it should display the values that are stored in these variables. And then I will just run it. It will take some time, and you can see 90. First one is marks, and then second is my double. If you compare it, it's 6.99, and then letter is C. You can see, and name is Carlos Arrow. At last is thank you for access, which is given here. Thank you for access. Got it? Clear?
Yeah.
That's an example of variable data types and values. Okay, clear?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so take a break for now and try to go through this particular example. Also, those who have not installed yet, try to install and practice on this half an hour. I'll be back at 6, okay? Do you have any questions regarding this session?
No.
Anybody is having any questions? Please unmute yourself while having the class, please. Hello?
Also, it's
Yep.
good.
Everything is clear. Hadil, are you there? Lubna? Hello? All right, take a break and try to do it. Those who are not here are not an issue. Those who